Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 2024 Izzy Awards nominations reveal. My name is Alan Dwyer. I'm president of the Irish Whiskey Society America, and we're going to take a few minutes today to reveal the nominations for this year's Irish Whiskey Society America Awards, or the IWSA Awards, or as we like to call them, the Izzys. Uh, this begins a process over the next month plus where we'll have open voting for a number of Irish whiskeys. I'm going to spend some time today going through this year's categories as well as the nominated whiskeys. We'll go through kind of how the process works, the so-called rules, and this will all culminate in a reveal event in early January, where members will be able to sample some of the chosen favorites that people will be picking over the next several weeks. So, a few things before I dive into the nominations and the categories. For those of you that are new to us, um, we've been around since 2010. We are a nationwide Irish whiskey club um, based in Boston, but we cover 43 states, members in all but 7 states. Um, and we've been doing this for quite a while. Although this is only the third annual Izzy Awards, we've been celebrating Irish whiskey in the USA, as we like to say, since 2010. And membership is open to anyone residing in the US who's 21 years or older. We do things a little bit different. It's not a monthly subscription or something that requires continuous payment. We have a lifetime membership. So it's a one-time sign-up fee. All the information on this is available on the website at irishwhiskeyusa.com. So I just wanted to mention that up front because you do not need to be a member to participate. And I'll get into that more in a moment, but the Izzys is open to everyone, although the uh, event where we sample as well as other events that we do throughout the course of the year and trips and such, that is only open to membership. So if you like Irish whiskey, check us out if you're not already a member. We do quite a bit, trips, events, newsletters. It's a real community-driven thing. We have fun. We don't take ourselves too seriously. There's a lot of things happening within Irish whiskey these days. It can be a little bit intimidating, especially if you go into a store and you see so many brands to choose from. So hopefully, we'll go through the categories today, and you'll see a lot of the different whiskeys. I'll talk about them as well as the categories. Um, and feel free to reach out through the website. And having said all that, why don't we just kind of launch into this? So, as I mentioned, um, the Izzys basically is an abbreviation of IWSA. Think of it like the Grammys or the Emmys, the Oscars. So that's all it is to that. It's not a person. Couple rules that are, to be honest with you, just made up by myself. But kind of keeping with our celebrating Irish whiskey in the USA theme, the only whiskeys that are eligible for the Izzys have to be Irish whiskey sold in the USA. So each year, more and more is coming to the States, which is great. which allows for a wider breadth of nominees. But you won't find, exclusive things that are just in Ireland that you may have heard of or even tried if you were visiting. This is we try to be open to people here in the States. So it's only whiskeys that you'll find here. Couple other stipulations. One is that so we can avoid having a particular whiskey, win 3 or 4 different categories. You can only be nominated in one category. So as we're going through this and you're wondering why isn't a particular whiskey in that category, it might be because it's already appearing in something else. The way it works is you'll see there are 5 nominees per category listed alphabetically. And like I said earlier, the only restrictions on voting are that you're 21 years or older and you live here in the States. So I think the way to think about this is meant to be fun and very inclusive, which is why we allow non-members to participate and basically almost anyone to participate, because we're trying to celebrate Irish whiskey. Having said that, why don't we jump in? There are 12 categories, 5 whiskeys in each category, so 60 possible favorites amongst the nominees. I think what you'll see too is really try to change up the categories each year. So this is not your typical, again, blind sampling type of awards program that you may be used to. Try to have fun with it. Some interesting, definitely unique categories that you will not see anywhere else. And again, part of it is to expand the recognition of what a lot of the new Irish whiskey makers are doing out there and get people to see what's happening and maybe even try some new Irish whiskeys. So having said all that, let's jump right in to the first category. And this is favorite non-age statement Redbreast Irish whiskey sold in the US. So Redbreast, most of you are aware of. It's arguably the most famous, popular Irish whiskey. They have age statement range from 12 years through 27 years in their core range, as well as some older limited edition exclusives. But this category is actually going a different direction with Redbreast. So we're looking at things that are not age statement. So the 5 non-age statement Redbreasts that are nominated for this category, we have a couple from the American Oak series that they're doing, and we have a few from the Iberian series that they're doing. So the first is the Kentucky Oak, which came out a couple years ago. It was the first in the American Oak series. And what that's basically doing is taking the Redbreast that you're hopefully aware of. If not, you should definitely go out and try it. But it's has an extra finishing in American Oak. This is from Kentucky, from the Taylor farm. So it's going to impart different flavor profile. The second is the Lustau edition. That's the oldest amongst this group. It's been around for several years. That has an extra 9-month sherry finishing, 9 to 12 months, more or less, but from it's Oloroso sherry from Spain. And that's been part of the core range for a while now. The third is the second release that came out this year in the American Oak Series. It's the Missouri Oak finish. And this one was about 10 months in uh, wood from the Ozark forest, virgin oak. So again, going to impart different flavor profile on what you're maybe used to from Redbreast. The last two are part of the Iberian series. The first is the PX, which was a 12-month extra finishing in Pedro Jimenez sherry from Spain. And then lastly is the Tawny Port edition, which received extra finishing in 1 to 2 years in casks from Portugal. So quite a different range of redbreasts that, again, non-age statement. So kind of thought we'd start off with a bang here and go with some heavy hitters. But this is category one, and no one ever said this would be easy, but it should be a lot of fun. So you can choose your favorite from this group. Okay. Category number two. This, I mentioned how, we have some kind of unique or interesting categories. This is one I like to call the full Irish. So this is favorite full Irish blend, Irish whiskey sold in the US. And full Irish is just kind of a reference to the breakfast staples that anyone who's traveled to Ireland would be aware of. In this case, with whiskey, this is in reference to blends that have the three styles of Irish whiskey, which would be single grain, single malt, and single pot still. So a lot of the blends out there have two of those, and these five contain all three. So the nominees for favorite full Irish from the Royal Oak Distillery, the Busker blend. So that's a 3 cask finish, bourbon, sherry, and marsala. These are all, by the way, 40% ABV. Second is from Dunville's brand. It's a sourced whiskey for the most part from the Ecklinville distillery in Northern Ireland. You can see the Dunville's brand's been resurrected by Ecklinville. You can see the reference to the 1808 date. This is oak cask matured. It has all three styles, as we mentioned, all these do. The single pot still element is actually from the Ecklinville distillery. Third is Lost Irish. It's an independent bottler. This is fairly unique. It has quite a lot of finishing in addition to the three styles. It's got casks, rum and brandy and Japanese, port, 6 different continents, the casks. So kind of really covering all the bases with this one. Came out a few years ago. Again, the fourth one is from Paddy's. It's the original cork whiskey. One of the best-selling Irish whiskeys. Great everyday drinker. You'll find it in most pubs in Ireland. And then lastly, we have the original blend, Tullamore Dew. That is a bourbon and sherry matured blend as well. Again, so those are your 5 nominees. I think a lot of people have had these because, again, they're kind of your everyday drinkers or not super premium from a cost standpoint. And and several of these have been around for a little while. But good representation here. We've got a few different distilleries. So again, kind of having fun with the categories. So um, choose your favorite full Irish. Okay, so third category is favorite grain, and so we've gone from a blend of all three styles to isolating one. So the grain category is pretty popular in Ireland as the um, sector was kind of regrowing over the last 15 years or so. One of the ways some of the new brands and new distilleries could put out product uh, quicker was to source grain from the likes of Cooley. Um, and there are a lot of different variations of this style out there. It's made with predominantly corn based grain, a little bit of malt. So usually 90 to 94%, 95% grain. And then there's about 5% malt, and that's just part of the whiskey making process to get things to work. But one of the ways you differentiate from this lighter style of whiskey is typically with the cask maturation. But these five, I think, really do a good job of representing the different ways you can differentiate the grain style. So first up, we've got independent bonder, JJ Corey. The grain release is the Hansen. This is actually not a single grain, which is why this is favorite grain category, because it's a vatting of two different distillery grains. So that's kind of the difference. This is 46%, has 10-year predominantly grain and a little bit of 4-year grain. So two different distilleries. Second is the Kilbeggan triple cask. So this one might not be as obvious of what it is because it's gone through a few different iterations. It started off, way back as Granor single grain, then was rebranded as Kilbeggan single grain, and now it's known as the Kilbeggan triple cask. So it's bourbon, American oak, and PX sherry, 43%. Third is the Method Madness. So this is from the smaller micro distillery down in Middleton. This is a 46% ABV single grain that's finished in a virgin Spanish oak, which gives it a real interesting flavor profile. Fourth, we've got Two Stacks Independent Bonder in Newry, Northern Ireland. This one is a bourbon sherry finish with 43% ABV. And then finally, we've got the 10-year from W.D. O'Connell, again, another independent bonder bottler down in Waterford. This one is finished in rye casks. So quite a different variety of finishes and within this style for you to choose from. Next category, probably doesn't need a lot of explanation. Favorite Jameson expression. Uh, One of the things we've done really is to promote all the new Irish whiskey makers the last few years. Last year in particular, there were quite an emphasis on what I'll call the non-mature distilleries and companies, and it led to a lot of favorites of some of the newer products out there. Um, so don't want to be accused of forgetting about kind of what got us here. In Jameson, the best-selling Irish whiskeys really, that saying about rising tide lifting all ships. So want to not forget entirely the Jameson brand, because sometimes that can happen as you're trying new things. So this is just a way to recognize what the favorite amongst the Jameson uh, expressions that are available here in the States. So first off, we've got the 18-year-old, which is a blend, 46% ABV. It's got a virgin oak finish to it, in addition to the American and European oaks. But one of the things with Jameson to be aware with these are all blends. Um, Jameson is a blend of single pot still style with grain, so it's two of the three. So that would be why this is not considered a full Irish in my vernacular. But it's a pot still grain blend, all of these. And they basically have different cask maturation. So Black Barrel, one of the more popular selling Jamesons. Then we've also got the two of the beer finish Jamesons here, the IPA edition and the stout edition, and of course the original blend, which is a bourbon and sherry finish. So you're pretty well known, available in most liquor stores in the States, Jameson products, four of which have slightly different uh, cask finishes, and then the one age statement, which is the 18-year-old that came out in this iteration a few years ago now. So all you Jameson lovers out there, here's your chance to pick which one of these is your favorite. All right, so next up is another category that I guess I would say is a little out there, different than you won't see this in um, in your standard award ceremony. But favorite animal kingdom, and this is really just uh, a reference to coming up with. There's just so many Irish whiskeys that are named or have some reference to an animal, either logo or place. But these five I'll go through. You may be familiar with some. Some of these are fairly new. So I'll do the animal tie-in, but Dead Rabbit is the first up. Again, these are all just alphabetical. Dublin Liberties Distillery. This is a brand that was made for the Dead Rabbit pub in New York City. Now they've got a few different locations around the States, but it's a 5-year virgin oak finished blend. It's very nice. We did an event in April, Fighting Irish, where we featured Dead Rabbit as one of the whiskeys. I think the rabbit reference is the obvious tie-in to the animal kingdom. Flying Tumblers, number 2, alphabetically, independent bottler. This particular expression from them is the bird. It's in, actually, you can see the little bird logo on there. It's a pigeon. The story on this brand is kind of in reference to those who've traveled away from Ireland and come back home. So that's what the particular pigeon here is that does that. And the whiskey itself is a 43% blend. Third, we've got a newer expression in Irish whiskey. This is the Limavady single cask, single malt. It's 46%. The animal reference here, Limavady, literally means leap of dog. You can see it. It's very small at the front of the label, which is very unique in the bottling on this one. But you can see kind of a leaping dog at the bottom. Uh, this one was we did a review of this, which you can find again on our website at irishwhiskeyusa.com. This is uh, a brand that's being brought back to life um, from all the closures of distilleries that happened 100 years ago. This is up in Northern Ireland, being brought back. There are plans to build a distillery there, but in the meantime, we've got this sourced single malt, single cask um, that's happening until that distillery can come to fruition. This has a PX sherry finish and a very unique bottling. You can see um, small labeling, but a pretty unique glass cork stopper as well. Again, you can read all about this in our review that we did in 2024. Fourth is Natterjack, which is named for the Irish toad, indigenous to Ireland. This is fairly widely available in the States, this particular um, brand. This is their uh, core expression blend. It's 40% virgin oak. And then lastly, we've got a new independent bottler. This one really designed for the States. It's Triple Dog. So this one's rather interesting. It's actually a full Irish style. It also has oats, and it's matured in a French oak cask, which makes it somewhat unique as well. 40% ABV. Also did a review of this, which you can find on the website, which you can read up more on that. But so those are your 5 Animal Kingdom related Irish whiskeys that you can choose from. All right. Next, we recognize um, some of the finishing that's going on with the Irish whiskey brands. So here we have Favorite Madeira, finished Irish whiskey, sold in the US. And I think several of these will be recognizable, and a couple of them are relatively new for the States. But first up, Bushmills, uh, part of their core range of single malts, the 21-year-old, which is about 19 years in bourbon and sherry, and then gets a 2-year finishing in Madeira. Second is a newer independent bottler brand. It's done Brody, and this is a blend. It's got a pretty interesting mash bill. It's 50% barley, and it also has corn and rye in the mix, and then finished in Madeira. Third up for Cullen, this is a single grain expression, 15-year age statement that is finished in Madeira. Another grain whiskey from Glendalough up fourth, the single cask with Madeira finishing. And then finally, one of the first Irish whiskeys, in addition to Bushmills, to embrace I think the Madeira wine as a finishing is Tyrconnell. This is part of their 3 different 10-year single malt expressions. They also have sherry and a port. This is the Madeira finish, so it's 10 years bourbon aged, and then with extra finishing in Madeira. So those of you that um, like it's a fortified sweet wine from Portugal um, that provides a fairly unique flavor profile to the whiskeys. So these are 5 that utilize that finishing. So choose your favorite from amongst this group. Okay. Next up, this category is one of, I think only two that are actually holdovers that we've done the last couple of years. Um, and that's because just by design, it's going to be different every year. So it's favorite new Irish whiskey for 2024 that came to the US. Now, some of these may have originated prior to this year, but just didn't come to the States. I think for the most part, though, all of these actually are new except for one for this year. Um, so first up is um, the newest spot release from Middleton Distillery. This is actually the second gold spot. The 9 year came out a few years ago as a limited edition. This year, they released the 13-year-old. So this is a 46% single pot still. And what's unique about this is its use of Italian red wine finish. The second is from one of the newer distilleries in Ireland, County Kerry, Killarney Brewing and Distillers. Beautiful distillery. And this is their new blend, premium blend. It's got a real nice pot still component in it. It just came out in the last couple months. Got a big release in Chicago area, which some of their primary owner investors are from. Definitely worth checking out. Third up is the latest in core expression from Middleton added to the Redbreast line. So it's the 18-year age statement. So it fits in between the existing 15 and 21. Uh, what makes this one a little bit different than those, in addition to just the different time, but it also has some port finishing whiskeys, um, as well as cream sherry. So what's interesting about this, I think, is it's a lot of the whiskeys had spent the first 6 years in bourbon, but then 12 years maturation in the cream sherry casks. So will be a little bit different. It's not just this, I think one of the things those of you Redbreast fans know from the different age statements, it's not just the same mash bill, or casks aged for a few different, a few additional years. It's different casks and mash bill even of the pot stills. So that just came out, again, September timeframe. So some of you may not have had a chance to try it yet, but it's fairly widely available where Redbreast is sold in the States. Fourth up is from the Ahascra distillery in County Galway. And the way you pronounce this is Oosh. It's a blend. It's 43%, and it's got a few different components in the mash bill as well as virgin oak influence. It's got wheat in there, oats. So it's a pretty interesting blend that is sourced. The distillery is beautiful, but it's fairly new in the last couple of years. So while we wait for their first, their inaugural release of their distillate, they're putting together some interesting releases from sourcing, using different casks and mash bills. So definitely worth checking that one out. That came to the States earlier this year. And then finally, we have the core expression from the Waterford Distillery. This is their Cuvée coffee. Did a review of this. Again, that's on our website. The concept here, Waterford, we won't get into all the detail. I encourage you, if you're not familiar, to check out the reviews, but um, really um, trying to push the concept of terroir with Irish whiskey, utilizing farms from a lot of local farms from down by County Waterford. This the cuvee concept, it's basically a combination of over 24 farms, and it's barley that's been taken from all those farms, put together into this, call it a blending of that, but it's a single malt because it's from a single distillery, and really trying to emphasize the flavor profile from the barley, from the Irish grown grains, and I would argue less about cask finishing and things like that. So um, we've got what, two pot stills, two blends, and a single malt amongst the five new nominees this year for favorite new. So if you haven't had a chance yet to try any of these, be on the lookout. I think they're all worthy contenders. Be real interesting to see um, what's chosen, because with this category, a lot of times I think it's some of the stuff's just too new, so people haven't had a chance to try it yet. Um, but I'll be curious as always to see which one's chosen favorite in this category for 24. All right, next up is another unique category. This one is favorite castle brand. So all of these are um, either associated or loosely associated with corresponding Irish castle. So first up, we have the Bunratty blend, which includes peated component. Um, Bunratty Castle is in County Clare. This is a 43% blend. So in addition to the peat, it's also using bourbon, sherry, and virgin oak cask maturation in this. Fairly, one of the newer whiskeys to hit the States in the last year or two. Um, the second is Clontarf Castle Hotel now in County Dublin. It's the spot with the famous battles. We featured this whiskey in our Fighting Irish event back in April of this year. This is the 1014, the kind of the core blend in the range of that's available here in the States. It's 40% primarily bourbon aged blend. Third up is a newer Irish whiskey as well. Last few years, this is the Kennedy Castle. It's located in County Offaly. So you can go there for private events, tours, things of that nature. Get a bite to eat, I believe. But they have, I think, three now whiskeys as part of their range. This is the 10-year, 43%. It's got about a year in sherry finishing. They've also got a core expression non-age statement blend, as well as a cider finish blend. Uh, Fourth up, very familiar, I'm sure, the Napog Castle single malt. This is the 14-year variety, which is a marriage of bourbon and sherry single malts. Um, we featured uh, this in a virtual event we did earlier this year. That was back in February for the chocolate and whiskey pairing sweet singles event. So this is the middle single malt in their 12, 14, 16 kind of core range. And that's located, the castle itself located in County Clare as well. Um, I think it's available for private events at this point. It's privately owned at this point. But very famous castle, very famous Irish whiskey brand that's been around for a long time. And then finally, we have the Slane Triple Cask Blend, Slane Castle. The distillery is located right next to the castle on the grounds owned by the Conahams. This Slane Castle, famous for their concert series that they do typically each year, where they have massive, I guess I'll call it a music festival, but it's one day type event. But for the last several years, the distillery has been producing whiskey. The triple cask is charred virgin oak, sherry. They owned by Brown-Forman. This has got Jack Daniel's casks in use. It's 40% blend. It's one of the best value Irish whiskeys out there. It's really interesting, with the cask finishing. And it's located County Meath, so not too far from Dublin. But they should be one of the distilleries coming out with their own distillate, in the next year or two, I would imagine. This still has sourced components in it. But those are your 5 Castle brand Irish whiskeys. So again, trying to have a little fun with the categories. So pick your favorite from amongst those. All right, next up is another category emphasizing wine finishing. So this one is favorite port finish Irish whiskey sold in the U.S. And alphabetically in this group, we have the Ballyhoo, which is a single grain sourced whiskey from the Connaught Distillery. 43%. Been available here in the States for several years now. Second up, we have Bushmills, part of their core range. This is the 16-year, 40% single malt. It has about a 1 year finishing at the end there in port. Third, we have Clonakilty, port finish, sourced blend. This one has been around for several years here in the States. It's a 43.6% ABV. They were one of the first, actually, blends you could get here in the States that utilized port finishing. I think the Bushmills predates it. That's a single malt, longer age statement, premium offering. I think Clonakilty was one of the first offerings that you could get with port finishing, in a blend in the States. The newest offering utilizing port is from the County Kerry brand, the Liberator series from Wayward Spirits. This is a tawny port malt. It's made on the Lakeview estate, which is by the lakes in Killarney. This is a 46%. Came to the States earlier in 2024. Doing a lot of interesting things, but a lot of what the releases have been small batch releases for the most part up till now, but really utilizing port casks, different types of port, different age statements and things. So be real interesting to see what's to come. Hopefully it reaches the states. But a lot of good things happening with the Liberator, and for those of you that like port that may not have had a chance yet to check them out, it's definitely worth giving that a try. And then lastly is from Turcano. Again, this is a 10-year single malt, part of that 10-year series that they've done. That this was one of the older port expressions that's been available for quite a while in the States. So similar to the Madeira, 46% um, single malt, Turcano brand is owned by Cobegan, and this has that port finish. So again, for a long time, I think the only ways you could really experience port were through this and Bushmills until some of these others started to really explore that type of wine finish. Okay, so those are your nominees. Go, run out and start sampling on your own if you need to, and choose your favorite from that group. All right, we've only got a few left. The next up is favorite Teeling Core range expression sold in the States. Uh, Teeling can be a difficult category just because they have so many expressions. I would argue they have more releases than any other distillery or brand. This is the core range that's sold in the States. Um, most of these for quite a while now. Um, you'll see many other expressions from Teeling, a lot of limited editions, different wine finishes, different wood types. The list kind of goes on and on. What we're doing with this category this year, though, wanted to recognize Teeling, but narrowed it down to just let's pick from the core range rather than this year, trying to isolate the different limited editions and other things they do. So, um, of these five do represent their core range. And what we have here, kind of going again alphabetically, first up is the Black Pits. That's the newest expression in the core range. And this is a single malt, non-age statement, and it's peated. So that's probably, I think, the thing that distinguishes this one the most from the others. So we've started to see more peat released Irish whiskeys in the last few years. This one also has the distinction of having maturation in French Sauterne casks, which makes it I think, a real good way to introduce people to peated expressions. It gives it a nice balance with that additional wine element to it. So if you're peat lovers, I think it's definitely something worth checking out. And if you're not sure about that style or new to the category, I think it's a good way to introduce yourself to peated whiskeys as well. Number two is the single grain variety. So this is one that, again, it's been around. One of their first releases. This one has the Cabernet Sauvignon red wine finish to it. I should say, too, all of the Irish whiskeys in the Teeling core range are 46% ABV. Third up is the single malt, which is a 5 cask expression. So this has sherry, port, Madeira, white Burgundy, and Cabernet Sauvignon elements to it. So quite a variety of different wine finishes that make up this non-age statement of single malt. Fourth is single pot still. So they brought back single pot still, one of the first distilleries to introduce their own pot still. Brought it back to Dublin. This was released, I want to say, back in 18 into 19 when it first came out. So now this is much more, mature part of their range. Prior to the Black Pits, this had been the newest expression. But single pot still, it's a 50-50 split, unmalted and malted barley. And this is a bourbon cherry and virgin oak cask maturation. And then finally, we have the small batch blend of the core expression range. This one, I think, is well known by many. It's got the use of rum casks in it, which I know is a pretty popular. I believe this was a chosen favorite last year in favorite rum finished whiskeys. So no one ever said it was easy, like we said, kind of like the red breast category we did. Teeling fans going to force you to pick a favorite from the core range. Okay. I think we're down to our last two categories. This is our way of trying to recognize the quintessential Irish whiskey style, the single pot still, which has been made famous by Middleton. So you've got your brands like Redbreast and Powers, the Spot range, all single pot stills. But with all of the new distilleries that have been coming onto the scene the last 15 years, we're now well over 40. Not all of them are releasing their own stuff yet, or it hasn't reached the States yet. But these five are non-Middleton distilleries that are doing the single pot still style, and their product has made it to the States. So we wanted to recognize those other than Middleton that are trying to champion this style and give them some recognition for what they're doing. So the five alphabetically, first up is Ballykeefe. This is a farm, small craft distillery in Kilkenny, County Kilkenny, that have released a few different products. They've also got a single malt, for example, kind of a farm to glass operation. Their single pot still is released at 46% ABV here in the States. Next up, from the Royal Oak Distillery down Carlow, is the Busker single pot still variety. It's part of the Busker range. They've also got single grain and malt and a blend. Their pot still 44.3% ABV. And it's a bourbon sherry cask finish. So you get, when you're sampling these, or if you've tried these, you're getting the distillate, which is the same style as what you're probably used to from Middleton, but obviously from a different distillery. And again, what makes this single pot still category unique, it's a combination of malted and unmalted barley. In some cases, you can have up to 5% other in there as well, which a couple of these do. But, I think the traditional for this is 50% malted, 50% unmalted. But what's nice about these new distilleries that are experimenting with the style is they're using other grains, maybe changing up the mash bill a little bit, percentages, things like that. So Really wanted to kind of highlight this category and what these distilleries are doing this year. So third up is the latest to come out. This just hit the States in September. This is from Clonakilty. We actually just did a big launch party event for this. Um, and because it's a fairly significant event, this was the first uh, whiskey to be 100% distilled by Clonakilty Distillery. It's single pot still. This one's a little bit unique too, in that it's a 60% unmalted, 40% malted mix, which is a little different than the standard 50-50. It also has interesting cash finishes. It's got bourbon sherry and Amontillado sherry. So gives it a little bit of a different flavor profile. So that's available now. If you haven't seen it yet, they also have an online store that you can get it. Um, Fourth up, from Shambo, single pot still. It's been around for at least 4 years now, I want to say. Um, they were one of the first newer distilleries to release a single pot still variety. So it was a pretty big deal when this came out. I remember at Whiskey Live when that was kind of the unofficial, I want to say, release of this, and everybody was running to the booth to sample it. Um, so this one, uh, I mentioned you can have up to 5% other grains. This has oats, Irish oats in it as well, which made it a little bit unique. So that's 43% County Leitrim. Um, so if you're not familiar with it, definitely worth checking out. And then lastly, we have the single pot still expression from Kilbeggan, um, which is oldest distillery in Ireland. And this one's 43%, also contains an element, about 2.5% of oats. Um, and that one's in Westmeath County. If you haven't been there, definitely worth checking out that distillery tour. Uh, really, it's the same as it was hundreds of years ago. So definitely worth checking that out, as well as the whiskey. So again, this is one I would argue you really want to explore. Um, Nothing against the Middleton single pot stills, because they're outstanding whiskeys. But I think there's a lot of good things coming from some of the newer distilleries. So this is a way that you can try and see what some of the next wave is going to be. All right, the last category, and this one is one that changes up each year, typically too, because it's limited editions. So it's typically stuff that's come out that won't be around forever. So in this case, we've got five, I think, interesting uh, nominees. You may not be familiar with all these, and that's not too surprising, because by just the nature of the category, they're limited editions. So you may not be all that familiar or have seen these. So first up, we've got single malt from Bushmills. It's a 12-year, which received additional finishing aging in tequila casks. Came out early in the year. Uh, Second up is from Connaught Distillery. This was a U.S. exclusive release that was done. A couple of years ago, they won Best Irish Whiskey for their distillery reserve. And this was kind of, I think, in response to that, people here couldn't get that, and wasn't available. So they wanted to make something that was available exclusively here in the States. So this came out uh, back in May, and it's about just under 7 year maturation, and it uses Neok sherry casks. Very nice whiskey. Um, that's, if you find a bottle, grab it. Definitely worth checking out. Third limited edition for 24 is from Dingle. I'm not going to try to pronounce it um, because this is being recorded, but this is the sixth release in the Celtic Wheel series that they've been doing now for the last couple of years. It's going to be wrapping up in December with the ninth release for Wednesday. But this one came out. This is for the spring equinox. So those of you that are familiar with this Dingle series, they've been releasing these for the last couple of years that correspond with times of the year and Celtic festivals and things like that. This is again the spring equinox version. Um, this one, they've all been, every one of these that have come out, they're either a single malt or a single pot still. They're all, I want to say, 50.5% ABV. And they have different cask finishes. They're all non-age statement. This particular one was the Cabernet Sauvignon finish, and it is available in the States. Not all of the Celtic Wheel series are, but this one did come to the States. So it's nominated. Fourth is the second Natterjack expression nominated this year. So that's great to see. Um, this this particular one is known as the Mistake, and the story goes that um, this basically came about because the casks were either forgotten about or misplaced, and it received an extra year of aging. So this received 2 years aging or finishing in virgin oak casks. So it's a heavily oaked whiskey. And what the other thing that differentiates this from, the core expression, which obviously has less finishing in virgin oak, and it's at 40%. The Mistake comes through us at 46%. So again, this is a blend, but a little bit different. So they also have a cask strength variety. So from a ABV, this falls in between the standard offering and the cask strength variety, but it's got at least an extra year in that virgin oak. And so definitely worth checking out. Something that's pretty unique. And then lastly, uh, the last of this category alphabetically. That's what happens when you start with a W, but also the last whiskey nomination for 24. But this is the Writer's Tears single pot still tequila finish. So this came out in the States to correspond with Cinco de Mayo this year. And, I think what differentiates it from the Bushmills, it's also in the category, is this is a single pot still. So I think it's the only single pot still that's been aged in tequila. Tequila's become more popular as a cask maturation, but it's typically been a blend or malt. This is a single pot still from Writer's Tears. Very nice. Tough to find, um, but did get released earlier this year as a limited edition. So those are your 5 nominees from this category. If you see these, find them, grab them. They may not be around for very long. Um, And those are the nominees and categories for 2024. So, kind of just wrapping this up, there were 60 different Irish whiskeys nominated in 12 different categories. And I think if you watched, you can tell, I think some of these categories pretty unique, made up, even if you want to say that. And again, we try to have fun with everything. We don't take ourselves too seriously. Again, this is a people's choice fan favorite type of awards program because we're not going to be doing blind tastings of these, at least up front in picking. It's based on what you like. The voting period, though, is going to be going on for about a month plus. So that doesn't stop you from doing your own independent sampling, tasting. So encourage you to, if you haven't tried some of these, go grab a bottle, test it for yourself before you vote. As long as you reside here in the States, 21 years or older, you're eligible. We've got the voting time period open for a little more than a month. That should give everyone time to sample if they want or fill out the ballot. Got the holidays, so I know people are busy, but there's plenty of time. It only takes about 2 minutes to go through the ballot. We'll have all the categories on it and the nominees. You just kind of pick which one out of the 5 in each category. If you're not sure or haven't tried some of the whiskeys in a particular category, that's no problem. You can just skip it, move on to the next one. But all that will kind of lead up. We'll tally all of the ballots and we'll reveal the favorites that were chosen in a live virtual event in January. And if you're a member, if you're an IWSA member, you can acquire samples of the chosen favorites. And what we'll do, like we did last year, as we reveal the chosen favorite in a category, we'll then sample that whiskey. So you won't know what you're getting ahead of time. It'll be it's in blind sampling in reverse. So rather than sample up front and picking, we'll pick based on popularity or what your favorite is, and then we'll have chosen favorites from amongst the group that we'll reveal while we're sampling them during that live event in January. So something to look forward to. If you're an IWSA member, please vote. It only takes a few minutes. One vote per email. So we're not going to be stuffing the ballots, so to speak. The ballots will be sent out to members individually. Newsletter will have it. We'll send it out a few times during the open period. It will also be on the website. So if you're not a member, that's how you're going to be able to access the ballot and vote. Again, that's irishwhiskeyusa.com. It's on the screen here. Everybody's vote counts. Again, we're trying to expand appreciation of Irish whiskey, so you don't need to be a member. We'd love to have you, though. So if you're interested and want to participate in the live award ceremony in January, just sign up. Again, membership, it's a one-time fee. And once you're in the club, you're in the club. And then you're eligible to participate in our events. We do half a dozen virtual events. We've got trips. We did our second bottle collaboration this year. So members have access to the Irish whiskey bottling as well. So those are just some of the member benefits. Jump on the website. You can see all the different member benefits that you have as discounts to a lot of vendors, as well as membership kit that you get. But for those that are already members, hopefully you'll vote and join us in January as we reveal the winners. And looking forward to that. Should be another exciting, I think, year event. Again, third annual. So we're trying to change it up each year. And we'll see where this one goes. But I appreciate all of you that took a few minutes to kind of go through this today. And the ballots are out there. Take a few minutes, stay tuned, and sign up if you're a member for the event coming up. And we'll be revealing the chosen favorite soon. Have a good one.